Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the book of Malachi as we wind down our study of the minor prophets. We're in chapter 3, verse 6 today, and in our passage, and we're going to read through verse 12. In our passage, he is going to convict the people of robbery. They've robbed him. Will a man rob God, but yet you have robbed me? Is a passage I think we're familiar with. There's just so much involved in these 12 verses. So much of the story of God's history with his people contained in them. Let's read chapter 3, verses 6 through 12. For I, Yahweh, do not change. Therefore you, O sons of Jacob, are not consumed. From the days of your fathers, you have turned aside from my statutes and have not kept them. Return to me, and I will return to you, says the Lord of hosts. But you say, how shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet you're robbing me. But you say, how have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you are robbing me, the whole nation of you. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house. And test me now in this, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you a blessing until it overflows. Then I will rebuke the devourer for you, so that it may not destroy the fruits of the ground, nor will your vine in the field cast its grapes, says the Lord of hosts. And all the nations will call you blessed, and you shall be a delightful land, says the Lord of hosts. Okay, God continues to describe himself as Yahweh of hosts. That's a theme throughout the book. Then we also see this communication model. This is the truth. You object to it, and this is the question you ask in your objection, and this is my answer to prove that I'm right. And that's what's happening here as well. And then there is the curses and blessings, but mostly curses because of the way they're acting. And we ended yesterday by talking about the promise of the Messiah being a promise of judgment, and that God is unchangeable, that the reason that the coming of the Messiah represents not just grace but judgment is that we have to decide, we have to choose. God's changeless. We're the ones who decide to accept or reject God's truth and God's grace. And to reiterate that, this passage begins with God saying quite clearly, God speaks so plainly in this book, for I, Yahweh, do not change. Right there. I, Yahweh, do not change. Therefore, O sons of Jacob, you are not consumed. You are here because I don't change. The reason that you survived and the Edomites have not survived is because I don't change. I made a promise to Abraham. I made a promise to David. I made a promise that you would be my people and that all nations would one day be blessed through you. Therefore, I have kept you alive as a people. I've preserved you through Egyptian servitude. I've preserved you through Babylonian captivity, through Persian captivity, through your return. I've preserved you through your own disrespect, disloyalty, and unrighteousness, because from the very beginning you neglected your covenant with me. How have we done that? Well, will you rob me? Well, how have we robbed you? By not bringing the full tithe. This is not so much about the money as it is about their devotion to him. As Jesus points out in Luke 16 with the parable of the unrighteous steward, if we don't get the money right, we're not going to get any of it right. That if we will not give to God what we should with our coin, which is not that important, then we won't give him the things that are important. We won't give him our heart. It's evidence of a deeper betrayal. And he makes that quite clear. And he says, listen, if you'll just give your devotion to me, test me on this, you'll receive blessing. Blessing poured out and overflowing. And of course, this language, again, is used, is referenced in the New Testament. The showers of blessing, the overflowing blessing that we have in God. But they're not doing it. I hope that as we read God, condemning them for bringing less than all the tithe and bringing him, less than a perfect animal, that this is not God being snippy or being petty or being petulant. This is about deeper matters, because if they can't do this little bit, then they're not going to do what they need to do. They will not give God their heart. As God has said in chapter 2, if the spirit of holiness was in you, you wouldn't be acting like this. He's talking about the symptoms of something deeper. And so let's remember that. I hope one more thing that I want to mention before we move on. I hope that we will all also see the forces already at work that will produce the people among whom Jesus ministers in the Gospels. The same jaded attitude that some people have towards God's law, and then the tithing of mint and cumin, but neglecting the weightier matters of the law that Jesus describes in Psalm 23. They got the letter right, but they didn't give God their hearts, and they haven't yet. We see everything that Jesus experiences being described in an embryonic state right here in the book of Malachi. Okay, we've got a couple more studies to do. We're going to pick up with verse 13 of chapter 3 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes.